Good morning, children. This is the second part of the video of Rip Van Winkle, which is there in your MCB textbook, Unit 3, Section A. So, in video part 1, I hope you might have already gone through it. And here it is already, we have already covered the pre-reading section of that. We already had the discussion about the author, and some information about the author was also given in that video, and some discussion about Rip Van Winkle, about sleep, how the world is going to change after 20 years of sleep, and all these things had already been discussed. Now, I assume that you have already read the textbook, you have already read the story, Rip Van Winkle. Now, this is a summary of that story. Suppose if you had already read that lesson, you might have seen, the story begins with the author, he like Washington Irving, he gives the setting of the story in the very beginning itself, that the story is taking place in Catskill Mountains, and particularly in a village at the foot of this mountain. And then suppose if I divide the story into 3 parts for your understanding, first part of the story, second part of the story, and the third part of the story. It is like before sleep, and then that sleeping time, and then the story takes place after sleep also. So here you can see, the first part of the story here itself, the author, he starts with the setting, like Catskill Mountain he introduces, and then he comes towards that village particularly, and then in that village he introduces the character of Rip Van Winkle and Dame Van Winkle. These are the 2 major characters in this story, and then he gives a contradiction about the character, like Rip Van Winkle. He is he's an unselfish man, a kind neighbor, and an obedient husband. That's what the author says. Whereas Dame Van Winkle, she is a woman with fiery temper and sharp tongue, and he is liked by everyone in the village, whereas Dame Van Winkle, nobody loved her also because of her nature. And then actually we can see, she was more concerned about her husband also, like how he's going to run the family and all these things. Then this first part of the story, it really focuses on Rip's nature, Rip's character only. Like it is mentioned, like he's a great favorite with the villagers, and then children also loved him, and because he made toys for them, and he told them stories of ghosts and witches, and he taught them to fly kites. So all these things had been described. And then it is also said, but there is a great error in Rip's composition, like God has created an error. So what was that error? Because composition, it is said, like the great error in Rip's composition was an aversion to all kinds of profitable labor, that he never liked to work. Like he disliked any kind of profitable labor. Whereas it is said, like you can see, it is not like because of he never had perseverance or he never had willpower. It is not like that. And then the author describes it like, he spends, he could sit for the whole day fishing, even though he has not, he was not able to catch even one fish. Then also he would like to sit over there. So it shows his willpower. So because he is that kind of character who would love to do things which makes him happy or which gives him happiness. So it is, and then he about his helping mentality, it is described in this first part, whereas he's very interested in helping his neighbors. And even when they give him some very difficult task also, he very happily takes up that task. And then and then this Dame Van Winkle, she was very concerned about how he's without money, how she can run that family. So she was very concerned about his careless attitude or his careless approach towards the family. And then and here it is also, in the first part, it is also described about his the happy going life of Rip. Okay, and about his there is a pet also. He is it is also said, like, and his name is Wolf. Okay, the pet, it is a dog actually, and it is said, like, his only alternative to escape from the labor of the farm and clamor of his wife was to take the gun in hand and stroll away into the woods, accompanied by his dog Wolf. So it is his favorite sport. So it is that like to escape from this job and to escape from that irritating nature of his wife. He loved to take stroll. Stroll means like walk away into the woods, and he used to take his dog also along with him. So this is about the first part. So just a quick recapitulation. First part, it tells us about the character of Rip Van Winkle and Dame Van Winkle, how they contradict, how the characters of Rip Van Winkle and Dame Van Winkle contradict to each other. And then the first part of the story mainly focuses on Rip's character itself. It gives us all the details about Rip's character. And then here it also describes about the error that happened in his character, like that is very important. Page number 54. The great error in Rip's composition was an aversion to all kinds of profitable labor. And then here he describes about his life, how his approach for life is also discussed, and it also discusses about his favorite sport, like to take a stroll away into the woods, accompanied by his dog Wolf. Now coming to the second part of the story, it talks about one of his long rambles that Rip had taken. So rambles in the sense, like it talks about one of the long walks that he had taken. Okay, so what happens was like unconsciously he goes to that highest part of Catskill Mountain, unconsciously or unknowingly, and then then he reaches his favorite sport of squirrel shooting and all. Then he was tired, he sat down, you can see him sitting down all over there, and then all these things. And then here in the second part of the story, it is very important, the appearance of a strange figure, because as he was tired, he feels like he was a little bit sleepy, but he hears a voice over there, the strange voice. Okay, and then appearance of a strange figure is also described here. Okay, and then he hears somebody calling him like Rip Van Winkle, and then suddenly he saw a strange figure climbing up the rocks with a heavy burden on his back. And Rip was surprised to see any human being in this lonely and unfrequented place. Okay, and then here it is describing about the stranger. I mean, how he looks like, and everything is also described. And then as it is said that he was carrying some heavy load, and then this stranger make some signs for Rip to approach and assist him with the load also. And then you might have already read about the character of Rip Van Winkle. When somebody is asking for some help, he cannot ignore it. So now he happily takes that burden of that stranger also. The two labored on in silence up in the wild mountain, mutually relieving one another of the load, till they came to a hollow surrounded by mountains. Then they reached to both of them reach a strange place. Okay. Then when they reach that strange place, here he happened to see some strange men. Okay, like some people over there. Odd looking people. It is said like in the textbook, page number 55, it is written like here Rip saw some odd looking people dressed in quaint outlandish fashion, playing ninepins. Ninepins is a kind of game. Okay, then it is describing, in the story it is describing about that people, how they are like, and everything is described. And these people, they were drinking something, okay, some strange kind of drink, and it is called drought. Okay, and Rip was also tempted to taste that. Okay, and then when he had drunk, when he takes a sip, then and then when he had drunk as much as he wanted to, he fell into a deep sleep. Okay, he tastes that thing and then he is falling asleep. Okay, so this is about the second part of the story. So second part of the story is about one of the long walks that he had undertaken to his favorite spot, where he happened to meet a stranger, okay, who was carrying, then the description about that stranger is given, who was carrying some heavy burden on his back. And then Rip helps this person, and then they reaches some other place where he meets some odd looking people, and they were having something, some drink or something, and then he also tastes that thing, and then he falls asleep. So this is the second part of the story. Then coming to the third part of the story, we can see like it is after sleep. Okay, well, after sleep in the sense like after then he sleeps. Then on waking, he found himself on the green knoll where he had first seen the old man of Glen. Okay, so it is like he was in some other place. Okay, so after sleep, then he rubs his eyes. So all the things like physical difficulties as well as changes in the environment. Okay, all things are described like what are the changes that happened in his body, like his knees and everything, the bones become stiff because he was sleeping for so long. Okay, and then it is said like then yes, so I have not slept. So first he feels like he was sleeping there only for one night only. Then later he comes to know like it was not for one night. He was sleeping there for so long because it was very difficult for him to move his joints and everything. And then he was not able to see his dog also. He calls the name of the dog. He was not able to. What was the name of the dog? Remember? Wolf. Okay, and then he goes to the village, and then Rip entered the outskirts of his village, which was strangely altered. Okay, so then it is that appearance in that environment is also given, like it was a larger and more populous. His familiar haunts had disappeared. Instead, there were rows of houses which he had never seen. So almost all, like everything had been changed now, but he feels like he was just feel like it was because of the drink that he had taken last night. And then Rip goes to his house. It was empty. Nobody was there. Then he calls his wife. He calls for his wife and children, but nobody comes, and it was just silence. And then villagers had gathered around him, but Rip could not recognize anyone. Then at that moment, a young woman with a child in her arms pressed through the throng to take a look at him. The child began to cry when he saw Rip's strange appearance. Strange appearance, like full of, I mean, with beard and everything, torn clothes and all. And now the child began to cry. Now the old woman, the name of the child and the tone of his mother's voice awakened a train of recollections in Rip Van Winkle's mind. So now ask, like when he hears that mother's voice, the mother of that child, he feels something else. Now he asks her, what is your name? And Judith Gardner, the woman says. So again he asks, like the name of her father. And that lady, that is that mother of that child, she tells like Rip Van Winkle was his name. And she tells that story, like now she tells, listen, Rip Van Winkle, it is already there in page number 56. Rip Van Winkle was his name, but it's 20 years since he went away from home. He has never been heard of since his dog came back without him. I was then a little girl. Okay, so this girl, Judith Gardner, she is his daughter only. So now he only realizes that he had been to that Catskill mountain 20 years before. So he had slept for 20 years. He has never been heard of since. Now he asks, where's your mother? Oh, she died some time ago. Rip caught his daughter and her child in his arms. I'm your father, young Rip Van Winkle once, old Rip Van Winkle now. So that is what he says. Okay, so after 20 years, the father is meeting his daughter. Sure enough, it is Rip Van Winkle. Welcome home again. Where have you been these 20 long years? Said an old woman who had tottered along to see him. Tottered in the sense like walked in a slow and unsteady way. I mean, the crowd is asking him, inquiring him, like, where this person was. Now Rip relates a strange experience to them also. Now they come to know, like it was Peter Vanderdonk, the most ancient inhabitant of the village, who affirmed that Catskill Mountains had always been haunted by strange beings. So it is like Catskill Mountain, it is an haunted place. Okay, now some person in that village, like that is Peter Vanderdonk. He informs, like this place is haunted actually by some strange beings. Rip's daughter, who was married to a farmer, took her father home where Rip lived happily. So that is the end of the story. So in the first part, it is giving us description, the characteristics of Rip Van Winkle and Dame Van Winkle is given, and it focuses on that sport that he had undertaken. Second part of the story tells us about, one of that favorite walks that he had taken, and he's meeting with a strange figure, and the drink that he takes, and he is falling asleep. And third part of the story is like, after sleep, he wakes up after the sleep, and then he goes back to his village, where he comes to know, like, he had been sleeping for 20 years, and he meets his daughter Judith Gardner, and he comes to know, like, his wife has she had passed away also. So that is the story. It's a very small story. Now, you know the summary of the story also. So this is just a discussion, that is post-reading discussion. Rip-Van-Winkle had slept for 20 years in the mountains. So what do you feel? Did he change in these 20 years? Yes, physically he has changed a lot. But other nature, nothing has been given, like whether his character has been changed, it doesn't know. We do not know. But his love for his daughter, and he said, like, he lived happily with his daughter. Okay. And then what things did he miss in his life? What all things he missed? The growth, his family life, he missed his the childhood of his daughter. All these things he might have missed. In your opinion, does he seem to care about these things? So what do you feel? Whether he was sad when he heard about the death of his wife, whether he was sad about the things that he missed. Okay, so it is for you. You need to think about all these things. Okay, so now, so this is video part 2. Now I'll be sending one more video where I will be discussing, the theme and the characters. Okay, thank you.